Let me share something remarkable with you. Last week, a man came to me after one of my lectures. He was successful by worldly standards, wealthy, respected, accomplished. Yet there was an emptiness in his eyes that spoke volumes. He said to me, Neville, I've achieved everything I thought I wanted, but I still don't know who I am. You see, my beloved friends, this is the greatest tragedy of human existence, to live an entire life without discovering your true identity. Most people live and die as strangers to themselves, wearing masks so long they've forgotten their true face. Tonight, I want to share with you the profound truth that has transformed countless lives. The truth that will set you free from all limitations once you truly grasp it. That truth is simply this: you are the living manifestation of God Himself, temporarily dwelling in human form. Now, I know this might sound startling to some of you. You might be thinking, Neville, surely you don't mean that literally. But I tell you, with every fiber of my being, I mean exactly that. Let me share with you why this is not blasphemy, but the very truth that Scripture has been trying to tell us. You see, when God speaks of Himself in Scripture, He uses one name above all others, that's I am. When Moses asked God His name, God replied, I am that I am. This wasn't just some mystical answer. It was the revelation of God's nature, and by extension, your nature. Think about it, my dear friends. What is the one thing you cannot deny about yourself? What is the one thing that remains constant throughout all your experiences? It is the simple awareness of being I am. Before you say I am rich or I am poor, I am successful or I am failing, there must first be this fundamental I am. This I am is God Himself, expressing as you. This is why Jesus said, I and my Father are one. He wasn't claiming something unique to Himself. He was revealing a universal truth about human identity. Let me share an experience that will help illuminate this profound truth. A lady came to me burdened with years of self-doubt and limitation. I asked her to do a simple exercise. For the next 5 minutes, I said, strip away every label you've ever accepted about yourself. Remove every role, every title, every description. What remains? At first, she was uncomfortable with this exercise. Like most people, she had built her identity on external things, her roles, her relationships, her achievements. But as she persisted, something remarkable happened. She touched that pure awareness, that simple I am, and in that moment she knew who she truly was. You see, my wonderful friends, finding out who you are is not a process of accumulating more knowledge or gathering more experiences. It's actually a process of removing everything that you are not until only your true self remains. Think of it this way. If you had a golden statue and it was covered with layers of paint, finding the gold wouldn't involve adding anything. It would involve removing the layers that hide the gold. Your true self is like that gold. It's already there, perfect and complete, hidden beneath layers of accumulated ideas about who you think you are. This is why Scripture says, be still and know that I am God. Notice it doesn't say think about God or study about God. It says be still and know. This knowing comes not through the mind, but through direct experience of your own being. Let me share with you the 3 fundamental truths about your identity that you must grasp. First truth, you are not your body. Your body is something you have, not something you are. You say my body just as you say my car or my house. Whatever you can possess cannot be what you are. Second truth, you are not your thoughts. You can observe your thoughts, which proves you are the observer, not the thoughts themselves. The true you is the awareness in which thoughts appear. Third truth, you are not your roles or your story. All these are temporary expressions, but you are the eternal expresser. These truths lead us to a profound question. If you are not your body, not your thoughts, and not your roles, then who are you? This is where we must enter into what I call the sacred silence of self-discovery. Let me share something profound that happened in my own experience. One night, alone in my room in New York City, I entered into a state of deep contemplation. As I sat there, I began to strip away every concept I had ever held about myself. Layer after layer fell away, until suddenly, and I want you to listen to this carefully, I experienced myself as pure awareness, boundless and eternal. You see, this is not just theory or philosophy. This is practical metaphysics that transforms your entire existence. Let me share with you the 3 levels of self-discovery that you must navigate to find your true identity. The first level, the outer self. This is the self that most people live and die as, the personality, the social mask, the collection of habits and patterns that we show to the world. It's like an actor so immersed in a role that he's forgotten he's acting. Let me share a perfect example. A successful doctor came to me, completely identified with his profession. His entire sense of self was wrapped up in being Dr. Smith. When he lost his license due to a false accusation, he fell into deep depression. Why? Because he had confused his role with his reality. You see, my wonderful friends, roles are necessary for the play of life, but they are not who you are. You are the actor behind every role. This brings us to our second level. The second level, the inner self. Beneath the outer personality lies what I call the inner self, the consciousness that observes all your experiences. This is closer to your true identity. But even this is not the final truth. Think about it this way. When you say I had a thought, who is the I that had the thought? When you say I had a feeling, who is the I that experienced the feeling? There must be something prior to thoughts and feelings, something that is aware of them. This is why Scripture says the kingdom of heaven is within you. It's pointing to this deeper level of self, this inner awareness that witnesses all experiences but remains untouched by them. The third level, the divine self. Now we come to the ultimate truth about your identity, what I call the divine self. This is not something to be achieved or attained. It is what you eternally are. It is the I am that never changes, never begins, and never ends. Let me share a profound technique for discovering this divine self. I call it the reverse inquiry. Instead of asking, who am I? Assume the position of pure awareness and ask, who is asking this question? Keep following this inquiry back until you reach the source of all questions. You see, my beloved friends, discovering who you are is not really a process of becoming something new. It's a process of uncovering what you eternally are. It's like the sun hidden behind clouds. The clouds may come and go, but the sun remains eternally itself. This is why Jesus said, before Abraham was, I am. He wasn't speaking of the personal Jesus, but of this eternal I am that is your true identity. You must learn to distinguish between your eternal nature and its temporary expressions. Let me share with you 3 practical exercises for discovering your true self. The first exercise, the silent witness. Throughout your day, practice being aware of being aware. Don't just experience your experiences. Notice that you are the awareness in which all experiences appear. The second exercise, the sacred question. Repeatedly ask yourself, who is aware of this moment? Don't accept any verbal answer. Let the question take you deeper into pure awareness. The third exercise, the divine recognition. Whatever you experience, recognize that you are the consciousness in which it appears. You are not the passing show, but the eternal witness of the show. You see, my wonderful friends, most people spend their entire lives trying to become something, trying to achieve something, trying to gather experiences. But I tell you this, all that effort is taking you away from the simple truth of who you already are. Think about it. When you say I am, you're expressing the same I am that God expressed when he declared I am that I am. This I am is your true identity. Everything else, your personality, your achievements, your roles, these are merely costumes worn by the eternal I am. Let me share something remarkable about this truth. Once you discover who you really are, all effort ceases. You no longer need to try to become anything because you recognize that you are already everything. This is why Scripture says, be still and know that I am God. My wonderful friends, now we come to what I consider the most transformative aspect of self-discovery, the power of recognizing your true self. This is not merely an intellectual understanding, but a living experience that will revolutionize your entire existence. Let me share something profound that occurred during one of my deep meditations. I suddenly realized that everything I had seeking peace, joy, fulfillment was not something to be achieved, but something to be recognized as my very nature. This recognition, my dear friends, is what I call the ultimate revolution. You see, there's a fundamental difference between knowing something intellectually and recognizing it as your very being. Let me illustrate this with a story that perfectly captures this truth. A lion cub was raised among sheep. It bleated like a sheep, ate grass like a sheep, and thought itself to be a sheep. One day, an adult lion saw this peculiar sight and roared with laughter. The cub, frightened, tried to bleat and run away. The adult lion caught him and dragged him to a clear pool of water. For the first time, the cub saw his own reflection alongside the adult lion's. In that moment of recognition, something profound happened. The cub didn't become a lion. He recognized that he had always been one. This, my beloved friends, is exactly what must happen to you. You are not becoming God. You are recognizing that you have always been the very expression of God himself. This is why Scripture declares, "Know ye not that ye are gods?" Let me share with you the 3 stages of self-recognition. The first stage, the recognition of presence. Begin by recognizing that before you are anything, you are. Before you are male or female, rich or poor, successful or unsuccessful, you simply are. This pure sense of being, this I am, is your first clue to your true identity. Think about it. You never experience yourself as absent. You might experience different states, different circumstances, but you never experience your own absence. This is because you are the eternal presence in which all experiences appear. The second stage, the recognition of awareness. Now go deeper. Recognize that you are not just present, but you are aware. This awareness is not something you have, it is what you are. Everything else appears and disappears in this daredevil awareness. But the awareness itself never changes. Let me share a practical exercise I call the awareness watch. Throughout your day, whenever you remember, notice that you are aware. Don't try to analyze or understand awareness. Simply recognize that you are the awareness in which everything appears. The third stage, the recognition of identity. This is the deepest recognition that this awareness, this presence, is not just a quality you possess, but is your very identity. It is the I am that God declared himself to be. You see, my wonderful friends, most spiritual seekers make a fundamental mistake. They try to reach God, try to connect with God, try to become one with God. But I tell you this, you cannot reach what you already are. You cannot connect with what you've never been separated from. You cannot become what you eternally are. Let me share with you what I call the 3 great illusions that prevent self-recognition. The first illusion, the illusion of separation. You believe you are separate from God, separate from your good, separate from what you desire. This is the fundamental illusion that must be dissolved through self-recognition. The second illusion, the illusion of becoming. You believe you must become something other than what you are. This keeps you perpetually seeking, never finding. The third illusion, the illusion of distance. You believe that what you seek is far away, in some distant future or place. This prevents you from recognizing what is already here, already you. Now let me share with you a profound technique for dissolving these illusions. I call it the recognition practice. Sit quietly and follow these steps. Recognize that you are aware right now. Recognize that this awareness is not something you created or achieved. Recognize that this awareness is the same awareness that God declared as I am. Recognize that you are this I am. You see, my dear friends, the scripture says, be still and know that I am God. Notice it doesn't say become God or reach God, it says no. This knowing is recognition. Let me share something remarkable about this recognition. When you truly recognize who you are, everything changes while nothing changes. The world remains exactly as it is, but your experience of it is completely transformed. Consider this profound truth. The sun doesn't need to do anything to be the sun. It doesn't need to practice being the sun or try to become a better sun. It simply is what it is, and from that natural state, it illuminates everything. In the same way, once you recognize who you really are, you no longer need to try to be anything. Your natural state is complete fulfillment, complete peace, complete joy. These are not states to be achieved, but your very nature to be recognized. Let me begin with something that happened just yesterday. A gentleman approached me after my lecture, deeply troubled. He said, "Neville, I understand intellectually that I am God's perfect expression, but my daily experience shows me something entirely different. This, my wonderful friends, is the gap we must bridge, the gap between intellectual understanding and lived experience. You see, living from your true identity is not about adding anything to yourself. It's about removing the veils that hide your true nature. Let me share with you what I call the 3 veils of forgetfulness. The first veil, the body identity. Most people are completely identified with their body. They think I am this body. But I tell you this, you are not the body, you are the consciousness that animates the body. Your body is in you, you are not in the body. Let me share a profound exercise I call the consciousness shift. Throughout your day, whenever you remember, shift your identity from body to consciousness. Instead of thinking I am walking, recognize I am aware of walking. Instead of I am eating, recognize I am aware of eating. You see, this simple shift begins to loosen the grip of body identification. It's like stepping back from a movie screen and recognizing that you are the awareness in which the movie appears. The second veil, the thought identity. Deeper than body identification is thought identification. People believe they are their thoughts. But ask yourself this, if you are your thoughts, who is aware of the thoughts? Let me share something remarkable about thoughts. They come and go, appear and disappear. But you, the awareness in which thoughts appear, remain constant. You are not the passing clouds of thought, but the unchanging sky of awareness. Here's a practical technique I call the thought witness. Throughout your day, practice watching your thoughts without becoming involved in them. See them as clouds passing through the sky of your awareness. Don't try to change them or control them. Simply witness them. The third veil, the story identity. This is perhaps the subtlest veil, the story you tell about yourself. Your past, your failures, your successes, your relationships, all these form a story. And most people completely identify with this story. But I tell you this, you are not your story. You are the awareness in which all stories appear. This is why Scripture says, "Behold, I make all things new." When you recognize your true identity, you are free to create a new story at any moment. Now let me share with you the 3 stages of living from your true identity. The first stage, recognition throughout the day. Begin by recognizing your true nature as pure awareness throughout your daily activities. Whether you're at work, at home, or in conversation, maintain the recognition that you are not the doer, but the awareness in which doing happens. I call this the constant recognition practice. No matter what you're doing, maintain the background awareness of your true nature. Like a screen that remains unchanged, while different movies play upon it. You remain the unchanging awareness, while life's experiences flow through you. The second stage, living from wholeness. Most people live from a sense of lack, constantly trying to add something to themselves to become complete. But when you recognize your true identity, you live from wholeness. Let me share a profound truth. Everything you seek, peace, joy, love, abundance, these are not things to be achieved, but your very nature to be recognized. When you live from wholeness, you no longer seek anything because you recognize that you are everything. Here's a practical application I call the wholeness recognition. Before you begin any activity, recognize that you are already complete. You are not doing the activity to become something. You're doing it as an expression of what you already are. The third stage, divine expression. This is the highest stage of living from true identity. Here you recognize that every action, every word, every thought is not yours, but God's expression through you. You see, my wonderful friends, when Jesus said, "I and my Father are one," he wasn't making a personal claim. He was declaring a universal truth about your identity. You are not a human being trying to express divinity. You are divine being expressing through human form. Let me share with you what I call the divine expression practice. Throughout your day, before any action, silently acknowledge God Himself is expressing as this action through me. This transforms every mundane activity into a sacred expression. Now, let me address something crucial. Some of you might be thinking, but Neville, if I am divine being, why do I experience limitations and problems? This is where we must understand the difference between your true identity and your current state of consciousness. Your true identity is like the sun, eternally shining. But your state of consciousness is like the clouds that can temporarily obscure the sun. The sun hasn't changed or diminished. It's simply hidden from view. This is why Scripture says, put off the old man and put on the new man. The old man is your limited state of consciousness. The new man is your true identity as divine being. For you see, while your true identity never changes, your experience of life is determined by the state of consciousness you occupy. Let me share something remarkable that happened during one of my experiments with consciousness. I was in New York, physically present in my small apartment, but I had learned to occupy the state of consciousness of being in Barbados. Within weeks, against all physical evidence and probability, I found myself actually in Barbados. This, my dear friends, is the power of consciousness. You see, states of consciousness are like rooms in a vast mansion. Your true identity, the I am, is the inhabitant who can move from room to room. Let me share with you what I call the 3 levels of conscious transformation. The first level, recognition of states. Most people are completely identified with their current state. If they're in a state of lack, they believe they are lacking. If they're in a state of illness, they believe they are ill. But I tell you this, you are not the state. You are the awareness that can occupy different states. Let me share a practical technique I call the state observer. Throughout your day, practice observing your current state without identifying with it. Instead of saying, I am depressed, recognize I am aware of experiencing a state of depression. This simple shift begins to free you from identification with states. The second level, movement between states. Once you recognize that you are not the state but the occupant of states, you can learn to move between them at will. This is what Scripture means when it says, in my Father's house are many mansions. Here's what I call the state shift practice. Choose a state you wish to occupy, let's say the state of abundance. First, recognize that this state already exists. You're not creating it, you're moving into it. Then ask yourself, what would I be thinking, feeling, and experiencing if I were in that state right now? You see, my beloved friends, this is not imagination as people commonly understand it. This is the actual movement of consciousness from one state to another. The outer world must then reorganize itself to match your new state. The third level, permanent transformation. This is the highest level of conscious transformation, where you learn to stabilize in higher states of consciousness. Let me share something profound about this level. Most people visit higher states occasionally, moments of peace, joy, or clarity, but they don't know how to remain there. They're like someone who visits a beautiful mansion but doesn't know they can live there permanently. I call this the divine occupation. It's the art of not just visiting but occupying divine states of consciousness. Here's how you practice it. First, choose a tuned state. Let's say the state of perfect peace. Second, recognize that this state is your natural state as divine being. Third, instead of trying to achieve peace, assume you are peace itself. Fourth, live from this assumption regardless of external circumstances. Now let me share with you what I call the 3 obstacles to transformation that you must understand and overcome. The first obstacle, mental habits. Your old patterns of thinking will try to pull you back to familiar states. This is why Scripture says, be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind. Let me share a technique I call the pattern breaker. Whenever you catch yourself in an old thought pattern, stop and ask who is aware of this pattern. This immediately shifts you back to your true identity as the awareness. The second obstacle, emotional attachments. Even when we want to change, We often have hidden attachments to our current state. This is why Jesus said, "Let the dead bury their dead." Practice what I call the emotional release. Recognize that your emotions are not you. They are experiences passing through you. You can let them go because you are the unchanging awareness in which they appear. The third obstacle, physical evidence. The physical world will continue to show you evidence of your old state while your new state is taking root. This is where most people falter. Remember this profound truth: the physical world is not the cause of your state of consciousness. It is the effect. When you maintain a new state despite contrary evidence, the evidence must change to match your state. Let me share with you the 3 laws of conscious transformation. The first law, the law of consciousness. Whatever state you occupy in consciousness, you must express and experience. The second law, the law of assumption. You become what you assume yourself to be. The third law, the law of expression. Your outer world is the expression of your inner state. My dear friends, tonight we enter into the very heart of conscious transformation, the practice of perfect states. This is where we move beyond mere understanding into the actual art of living from enlightened consciousness. Let me share something remarkable that occurred just last week. A lady came to me in deep distress about her financial situation. Instead of trying to change her circumstances, I showed her how to occupy the state of divine abundance. Within days, opportunities began appearing that she hadn't seen before. You see, it wasn't the world that changed. It was her state of consciousness. Let's explore what I call the 3 perfect states that form the foundation of enlightened living. The first perfect state, divine love. Most people think of love as an emotion or a relationship between separate beings. But I tell you this, divine love is a state of consciousness, your natural state as divine being. Let me share a profound practice I call the love recognition. Throughout your day, recognize that love is not something you feel, but what you are. Instead of trying to feel love, recognize that you are love itself expressing. You see, when Jesus said God is love, he wasn't describing a quality of God. He was describing God's very nature, which is your nature. This recognition transforms every relationship because you're no longer trying to get love or give love. You're being loved. The second perfect state, divine wisdom. Wisdom is not accumulated knowledge, but a state of consciousness that knows through direct recognition. It's what Scripture means by be still and know. Here's what I call the wisdom practice. Before making any decision, shift from thinking to direct knowing. Instead of analyzing pros and cons, enter the state of divine wisdom and let the answer reveal itself. You see, my wonderful friends, when you occupy the state of divine wisdom, you have access to all knowledge. This is why Solomon didn't ask for knowledge. He asked for wisdom, and all knowledge was included. The third perfect state, divine power. True power is not the ability to control or dominate, but the state of knowing that all power flows through you as divine expression. Let me share the power recognition practice. Throughout your day, recognize that any power you express, whether thinking, speaking, or acting, is not your personal power, but divine power expressing through you. Now, let me share with you the 3 stages of practicing perfect states. The first stage, recognition. Begin by recognizing that perfect states are not something to achieve, but your natural condition to realize. Like the sun doesn't practice shining. It simply is light. You don't need to practice perfection. You need to recognize your perfect nature. Practice what I call the perfect recognition. Throughout your day, before any activity, recognize, I am the perfect expression of divine being expressing as this activity. The second stage, occupation. This is where you learn to fully occupy perfect states regardless of external conditions. Most people let circumstances determine their state. But I tell you this, you must determine your state regardless of circumstances. Here's a profound technique I call the state occupation. Choose a perfect state, let's say divine peace. Now occupy that state completely, letting go of all resistance to current conditions. You're not trying to change conditions, you're occupying the state that will naturally transform them. The third stage, expression. This is where perfect states become your natural way of being. You no longer need to think about occupying them because you recognize they are your true nature. Let me share what I call the three aspects of perfect expression. First aspect, spontaneous expression. Perfect states express spontaneously without effort or planning. Second aspect, complete expression. Perfect states express completely, not partially or gradually. Third aspect, eternal expression. Perfect states express eternally, not temporarily or conditionally. Now let me address something crucial about practicing perfect states. Many people ask, but Neville, how can I maintain perfect states when the world shows me imperfection? Remember this profound truth: the world you see is the outpicturing of your state of consciousness. When you occupy a perfect state, the world must transform to match that state. This is why Scripture says, "Be ye perfect as your Father in heaven is perfect." Let me share with you what I call the three keys to maintaining perfect states. The first K, absolute recognition. Recognize that perfection is not a future achievement, but your present nature. The second key, complete acceptance. Accept your perfect nature without trying to improve or change it. The third key, natural expression. Let perfection express naturally without forcing or controlling.